Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And if you don't know, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. So the question in this particular video is can you actually do a doctorate in entrepreneurship? And then when you're doing research in entrepreneurship, can you actually teach this in the classroom? And uniformly, yes, you can actually do all of that kind of stuff. There are programs that are doing doctorates in entrepreneurships. Generally, if you look at a strategy program, for example, they're going to teach entrepreneurship or a component of that. But then you can also do research in those areas, and it doesn't matter what program that you're at. Some of them are specializing specifically in entrepreneurship, but most of them, you end up going to a strategy program and researching entrepreneurship there. Then you go and actually teach this in the classroom. And there is a debate right now whether you can actually teach entrepreneurship in the classroom, but I uniformly believe you can teach entrepreneurship in the classroom. We've learned a lot over the course of 20, 30, up to I think about 70 years now, when we actually started doing entrepreneurship research with I think it was Schumpeter was in, I think that's the 1930s. I'm bad with dates. That's why I have a citation manager. So anyways, you definitely can, we've done a lot of research in this area, and we understand about entrepreneurship a lot better than what we did, right? So we understand how small companies actually innovate, that that the characteristics of individuals that are managing these firms actually do matter, that the environment matters for the entrepreneurial venture where they actually set things up, the sort of relationships and networks that they have, that the entrepreneur actually have, they matter for the firm. There's all sorts of things that we do understand, and we can sort of put a finger on and say, this is the thing that's actually working, and you should probably do this kind of stuff, right? So with my own research, I've learned that sort of persistence is actually a really good thing to get through sort of negative downturns within something that you're doing, and sort of on an innovation, creating a sort of innovative thing, or with an entrepreneurial thing. And these things are really important, right? That we understand these kind of different factors and stuff like that we didn't necessarily understand before, that they actually do matter, right? So the question is that comes up in terms of teaching in the classroom in this research, so we understand how the world works a little bit more. There's a couple of different factors, but just because we understand these different factors doesn't make it that the entrepreneur is actually going to do those kind of things, right? So we can teach that in the classroom. If you do a doctorate in entrepreneurship and you understand these different factors, we could teach it in the classroom. It doesn't mean that they're going to execute on those different things, right? So people forget things. It's kind of human nature to forget all this kind of knowledge, even if they absolutely absorb all of this kind of stuff, right? So the things that we actually I stuttered about stuttering, that we studied within the classroom, or we study within our research papers and stuff, doesn't necessarily translate quite well to what we can teach in the classroom. So for example, it might be the fact that we've studied what increases the propensity to start something, right? That is different than what makes it sort of successful in the long run, or studying what is going to create sort of an entrepreneurial success in how can we actually convert a firm into, some new startup into an IPO in the future, for example, initial public offering. And it's not necessarily all that clear. And sort of transitioning, what we do is we study little tiny things, and we study these little tiny things, and then we go about and we try to teach those kind of things. But what we're seeing and what we're kind of missing, and this is where the teaching is a bit of an art, is we see these little pictures along the way with the entrepreneurship stuff, and the teaching is sort of bringing with the research, and the teaching is bringing it all together and making a story that we can tell and sort of tell students in the classroom. So the other thing to remember is that there's lots of noise that happens, right? So even if the people that are in the classroom that are learning about this particular material, and they're understanding it really, really sharply, and they've studied it, they've aced all that material, they can go and execute perfectly on all of this knowledge. But because things change, or the environment there's lots of noise in the environment that's constantly changing, that other people are doing things, other factors in the environment, that sort of reduces the likelihood that that could be successful. So they could execute and do everything absolutely perfectly. But then, because of what's going on in the environment, that it doesn't necessarily lead to an improvement of success. But really what we're trying to do with entrepreneurship education and sort of doing research in this area is actually trying to just change their probability of success a little bit better than what they had before, right? And so what we're looking at, and even within the research, right, we are looking at explaining 5% of the sort of noise, or 5% of what's going variance within the environment. And if we can do that, then that's good, right? Like, we've done a little bit better. So if we can improve the chances of somebody improving with their entrepreneurial venture by about 5%, hey, that's fantastic. We've done our job. That means a lot of money if lots of people do that and execute on that kind of stuff and do a really good job. That means lots of people are going to be a lot more successful. A lot more unmet needs are going to be served and helped. And there's, in general, the economy is going to grow tremendously if we only improve the chances of somebody doing something, an entrepreneurial venture, successfully by a couple of percentage points. That actually translates into something very, very big in the long run, right? If lots of people are doing that kind of stuff. Do we know actually how to teach entrepreneurship well? I think that's up to debate in terms of whether we can do a good job out of that. We do have a lot more tools and resources than we used to have in the past. For example, case studies, sort of Harvard case studies. There's lots of those available now to do this in entrepreneurship. There's we have lots of tools and technologies. So, for example, I use one that's really cool in the classroom called the Clean Start Simulation by MIT. John Sturman at the sort of group that does, I'm blanking on a systems dynamics group at MIT. They do a really cool simulation. They have several of them to sort of illustrate different points, and the students can sort of use these simulations, and you get a lot of insight. I personally get a lot of insight just by using it every single time. So thank you, actually, John Sturman and group out there. You do a really good job of these simulations. I really speak highly of them because they're a great teaching tool. So there's, the teaching of entrepreneurship is continuously improving. It's getting better. And it's an art, right? And so if we can actually teach this, then that's like a great thing. So when you do your doctorate in entrepreneurship, you will learn how to. You might not learn how to teach specifically when you're doing your doctorate, but when you're actually going and teaching, you will learn how to actually improve along the way. So, if you decide to do a doctorate or PhD or whatever in entrepreneurship, how do you actually go about and research entrepreneurship? So I personally would choose, if this was me, I would choose aspects that are not necessarily covered right now. So that's called the research gap. I've got a video on that. You can go find it. And the other thing is, look for things that would interest you as a possible entrepreneur. So that's an important thing to think about. What is going to interest you personally? And do research on the things that are going to interest you personally. And, I wouldn't sort of do things that are easy to teach, and I wouldn't sort of do research that is easy to do in any sort of sense. But I would do things that really matter to you as a person, as a human being, because that's what's going to drive you in the long run. Just because it's easy to do doesn't necessarily mean it's going to matter in the long run. So those are the things that I would do if I was doing a doctorate in entrepreneurship and thinking about doing research and teaching in those areas. Hopefully this was valuable. This video was valuable. Give me a thumbs up if it was, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. But what it did cover is, when you do doing a doctorate in entrepreneurship, can you actually do it? And, can you do research on this? Yes, absolutely. Lots of people are doing that. It continues to grow every single day. Can you teach entrepreneurship? Yes, absolutely. You can teach entrepreneurship to students. Can we do it effectively? Well, It's tricky, but at the same time, we're continuously improving and it's getting better compared to what we saw even, 20 years ago. There's very few courses on entrepreneurship 20 years ago. Now there's lots of different courses and lots of people teaching them, and it's continuously improving and getting better as we, develop these courses and develop this material and develop an understanding of the world around us, particularly in entrepreneurship. So again, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.